Welcome back to the Wacky Wonderful Wiseworks podcast, all you guys, gals, geeks, and goofballs. Man, it's been a big week, and it's an even bigger week. We're going to be diving into Middle Earth. We're going to be looking at a whole bunch of things. There's a lot of Middle Earth
episode.
Big Middle Earth episode. There's a lot of Middle Earth stuff.
If you're wondering where Josh is, he betrayed us. He abandoned us, left us to pick up the scraps. No, he's dealing with some personal stuff, and that's cool. You know,
I thought you were about to say, no, he's dead.
no, he's dead. No, you know, sometimes you gotta deal with what you gotta deal with. But yeah, so it's just us. Just
right.
You know, the two. We're both wearing snapback hats.
I'm always wearing a hat these days, dude.
Yeah, but I'm when my hair is short, I wear a hat more. As my hair gets longer and more fluffy, I don't, because when I take off a hat, it looks terrible.
Right.
So I need to get a haircut so I can start wearing my hats more.
Yeah, there was we had a phone call this week that was pretty interesting around a movie. And I was surprised because I thought for sure you had seen it already. And because I recommended it so hard to you months and months ago. It might have been well over a year ago. I don't remember when it came out.
I had heard it was really good, and then my dad had called me and told me that it was good, and I was gonna turn it on. I did turn it on. And I turned it on with Josh and John Mark and Ethan, and then nobody paid attention. I was trying to pay attention, and then I guess we all got talking, and then we didn't pay attention to the movie. It was slow. They were like, "Hey, this is boring."
That just means you're not paying attention. You can get bored at any movie if you're not paying attention.
Bored. Yeah. And so I was this past week, what I do at work is I listen to things. I listen to books. I listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of movie breakdowns, commentaries, media breakdown type stuff.
Right.
Because I love listening to people talk about stuff that they enjoy and break down why they enjoy it, and stuff that they hate and why it's why they don't like it, and it that I think gives me a more full idea and understanding of how people see movies and literature and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I was watching something, and they were talking about dialogue. They're like, this is what you can do with great dialogue. This movie, this scene right here between these two characters. And every time I see that, I think, yes. And then I go watch clips and stuff from movies between characters that have incredible dialogue. And I remembered The Killer.
The Killer on Netflix, David Fincher.
Yeah, I remembered The Killer. It's got Michael Fassbender. I remembered that opening monologue that was so boring that we ended up turning it off and doing something else. And I was like, I bet that's really good. I bet that's a really good opening monologue.
Did it come into your head? Joe said it's good. My dad said it's good.
So before either of you told me that it was good, I had heard off the internet that it was good.
Right.
So much so I had actually started watching Critical Drinker's review of it and stopped, because after I watched the movie, I went back to Drinker's review, and it was like halfway, like the beginning was watched through, where I had stopped watching it to go watch the movie. And yeah, dude, just such a good movie.
There's a lot to it, and I think your biggest criticism was that he just needed to have less or no inner monologue kind of thing.
It definitely less. He gives us enough at the very beginning. The beginning lays out his entire worldview.
Mm-hmm. This assassin character,
This
right?
assassin character, and then the rest of the movie, he references that original monologue. I am fine with him referencing the original monologue. I just wish there was less inner monologue about other things.
Yeah.
And
Because you thought he communicated it enough in his
he
expression.
communicated everything on his face.
Yeah.
What pulled me in actually to watching it again, in addition to the other stuff I was thinking, as I was scrolling through Netflix and I saw it, I hovered over it, and the clip that they play is the conversation between him and Tilda Swinton's character.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, anything could have happened. I could have slipped on ice. I could have, it could have been a hit and run. You could have killed me any number of ways. Why are you here right now doing right with this? And he says, like, for the conversation. And she's like, I don't believe that. And just this interaction between them
just got you.
Oh man, I was like, okay, man,
you're turning it on.
I
You
gotta
turned it
watch
on.
this movie.
You freaking loved it, man. Because I told you it's a good movie. If you guys enjoy kind of like dark assassin movies,
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't seen The Killer that's on Netflix, you gotta watch The Killer.
It's a slower pace.
It's not anything slower than like Godfather or whatever.
Don't go into it thinking that it's John Wick. People think
John Wick.
assassin and they think John Wick. It's not John Wick. It's a completely different kind of movie.
Yeah.
You got to go into this one knowing what you get. It's a slower pace, but
it's rich. It's rich. If you pay attention, it's rich, and you'll thoroughly enjoy it.
And aside from, there were a few moments cinematically where they use CG for like some cars going down the street or something aesthetic, right? Nothing so big as to be super distracting.
Or nothing so big as to be really egregious.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, like the cinematography is really good.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
There's a couple of really great, like just top down shots where everything looks really tiny, but you get a great mental image of the layout, the map of where he's at. Yeah, I would love to do our whole conversation that we had on The Killer. I would love to do that on the podcast, but let's do it for like Wind River or something.
Okay. All right. But for people who are curious, we'll do a recommendation here at the top. Just check out The Killer on Netflix. You'll thoroughly enjoy it. It's got Fassbender in it. It's directed by David Fincher.
Also,
you'll like it.
Something I noticed that watching the movie, you watch his wardrobe throughout the movie change as he goes from like, I'm blending in, I'm using natural camouflage, to I'm wearing black, I'm doing assassin stuff.
Right.
And there are really good moments where he's just like, with the inner monologue where he's like, don't improvise, proceeds to improvise. I love those moments. Do not improvise. And then he improvised. Oh man. Gosh, it's a good movie. Dude, you gotta watch Wind River.
I'll watch Wind River. Wind River. I will. It's on. It's actually closer in my mind than you might think.
It's slow burn.
I'm okay with that.
The funny thing about this is I see all of these movies in reviews and stuff, and I see it's like people saying, oh, this is really good, you should go watch it. Right. And then before I get a chance to watch it, my dad will call me and be like, hey, have you seen this movie? And I'll be like, no, because my dad loves slow burn, little bit of action, little bit of intrigue, really good dialogue, kind of movies. He likes dumb movies too.
Right.
He'll ask if I've seen a movie that's like dumb fun, because he likes dumb fun as well. But anytime there's a movie like The Killer or Wind River, he's calling me up and being like, dude, have you seen this?
Right. Hey, let's go ahead and jump into this. We promised we're talking about Middle Earth, and there's a lot to Middle Earth. So, we're going to take a look at, obviously, the first 3 episodes of Rings of Power are out. We are recording this ahead of time, so we haven't seen those episodes yet. We will be doing content on this channel about Rings of Power as it rolls out. So stay tuned on the channel for that. But we are going to be talking about some kind of behind the scenes stuff around Rings of Power because this is the relevant time. And just to tease you up, we also will be doing War of the Rohirrim conversation after Rings of Power. That's why we're living in Middle Earth for the podcast tonight. So the Rings of Power season 2 is going into this. I have a feeling I'm sort of looking forward to it in a way of morbid curiosity. Morbid, because I was so incredibly
Clark. That's why.
What?
I said it's because her name is Morfydd Clark. That's why I made that joke.
Hilarious. I didn't know that was her name.
That's why. Morphic curiosity. It's okay. Keep going. Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I had some morbid curiosity, and because I actually was curious from the first season, and I was like, man, I saw the trailers. I wasn't really stoked. When I got into the season, I was really disappointed. We have old videos from season 1 on the channel. So going into this season, I'm just holding on to my seat, right? And I'm expecting it to be really disappointing. And we have some there's this really large GQ behind the scenes article that was written.
Dude,
and it's a lot of information, a lot of stuff with the actors and the creators, a lot of quotes. We're going to take a look at some of the stuff that's talked about. Shout out to a video I have on the channel I did last week, which is about the Stoors. They're introducing more Hobbit clans into this season. But just wanted to get down here. This is some of the stuff that the creators, JD Payne and what was the other guy's name?
Patrick McKay.
Yeah. What they had to say in this interview. And I thought it was very interesting. I want to kick it to Wyatt to do a little bit of reading for us.
Yeah. I have the article open on my side. You don't have to scroll up if you want, but above it, it kind of starts the idea of what they get into in this paragraph is the Rings of Power has taken the relatively radical decision to cast actors of color in principal roles, a breakaway from the white-dominated image of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings.
So the white-dominated.
Yeah. So the European based stories with their white dominated cast. These dang European stories.
Why do we have to make all these European stories, man?
Right. You guys remember in the Kevin Costner Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, where they bring in Morgan Freeman. And at no point was anybody like, why is Morgan Freeman here? Because at the beginning of the movie, he's like, I'm going with you, Robin of Locksley. And so it makes sense why he's there.
Yeah.
And then if you watch like the Robin Hood with Jamie Foxx, there's no explanation for why Jamie Foxx is in England. There's, watch the King Arthur movie that with Jude Law. There's no explanation for these characters. It's anyway. Where are you going, dude?
I'm just showing some of the black actors.
Oh, well, like scroll down to that picture of Anatar or Adar.
Adar, yeah.
Adar. Honestly, cool photo.
Not bad.
In my opinion, that's a cool photo. The orc looks cool. His makeup looks pretty sick. They're dirty. They're grungy.
The background, whatever that circular thing is, looks
like a wheel.
Yeah.
If I were to guess, perhaps a wheel.
Yeah.
They're in the woods. It looks cool.
Right.
Which is what makes the show such a disappointment.
Yeah. Because honestly, there's a lot of stuff that looks cool.
There's effort put in, but not clearly not the effort that needs to be put in the writing, in the story, to
Yeah.
make the effort in the costuming. Here we have some I don't know, some homosexuals. What is that
Well,
true?
this Patrick McKay and JD
Oh,
Payne,
JD Payne and Patrick
these
McKay.
are the creators that are
Yeah.
responsible for the horrible
Mhm.
creation of an abomination of the
Yeah.
Professor Tolkien's work,
From
right?
Bad Robot, J.J. Abrams' company, they have, like
Failed. They
failed,
got
yeah,
kicked out.
they actually don't really have any they never worked on anything significant. They have a couple writing credits from working at that company.
They're the guys that gaslit the fans for season 1 coming
Yeah,
out saying,
failures.
"We just go back to the book, back to the book, back to the
Back
book."
to the
That's what
book, dude.
they're acting like they treated the novels as if they were the Bible, and
Mhm.
when you watch the
They didn't.
show, it's the furthest thing from.
Um, but getting back down to that article, so this is from, Sophie Nomvet.
Mhm.
It is a genre that was closed to me before. No, it wasn't. It says British actor Sophie Nomvet, who plays dwarf princess Disa. Growing up, there was nobody that looked like me in the front and center of fantasy. Um, I'm not going to necessarily disagree with that. Fantasy sci-fi fiction has not always been super diverse, but
Mhm.
that's a product of Hollywood. Back when they were making all the sci-fi and fantasy and stuff, it's like not super diverse, but also not undiverse because I mean,
Not
let's
undiverse.
yeah, not undiverse. Lieutenant Uhura,
Yeah.
a little bit of a throwback there. I know that. I mean, um, but if we're talking sci-fi and fantasy and this genre, um, Lieutenant Uhura, I would say kind of counts. But she won't
Here's the
mention
thing.
her. She won't
Here
mention her
this
because
is where
she
I'm
didn't actually watch this stuff. She's making this up. She didn't watch sci-fi and fantasy.
right, but this is also, if we're being very honest,
Mm,
okay? I'm not gonna say that black folks or anybody that's outside of white, right,
mm,
can't enjoy stories like these, but these are written by people who were at first, especially when Tolkien was around, interested in this genre, right? There
mhm.
wasn't as much interest around this genre in certain cultures back in the day. This would be
Yeah.
kind of like me going, in being in the 90s and being like, why isn't there more white representation in juice or something? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's the equivalent. It has to
In
do with
rap
the
culture.
culture, it has to do with the culture that the creators made. And I'm not going to say we
Thank
shouldn't have,
goodness for Eminem. Like, I can
thank
finally see myself.
goodness I've seen myself in
Thank
this
goodness I've seen
culture,
myself
in
in
this
rap
black
culture.
dominated culture, right?
Um, yeah. But, no, and it's not necessarily completely wrong that there hasn't been a lot of black people in sci-fi and fantasy, but it would be wrong to say that it was closed to you because you've never seen it before.
This is
Um,
honestly, so I want to share a thought, and this is kind of like where my boundaries lie. So like when it comes to, um, if I'm being really honest with you, okay,
mhm,
I am not as upset about diversity of characters. I think the thing that I'm upset about is the motivation as to why. So like if you had,
yep,
so like the Harfoots in the book are written as if they're darker in complexion. So I don't have a problem with diversity, like black folks or non-white characters
mhm,
as Harfoots,
yeah,
because the book references them as darker in complexion.
right,
So that's correct with the lore. That's great. If even if you want to say like in Rohan or in Numenor, if you want to have like families and people that are dark skinned, I don't have a problem with that. And when it also comes to elves, if you're gonna do a black elf, just do it correct. Do the long hair, make them look like elves that we have imagined them to be in Middle Earth. Don't do
yeah,
this like subverting of the expectations, right? You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like that, I honestly that's not the big problem. I think the big problem I have is when they start accusing white people as being like a dominant force over a genre when you and I have had nothing to
Well,
do with that, but we're
it's
kind of blamed because we're the fan base of a white dominated.
they do this because it's not out of wanting to make the genre more inclusive. It's they hate how popular the original stuff is. They
Right.
hate it. They hate how popular the original stuff is without being inclusive to them, without being inclusive, without being uh, um, woke, without all of these identity politics. They hate how much people like it.
Mhm.
And so there's almost a malice in the way that they are casting in the interviews that they're doing. Yeah, let's keep reading a little bit. I'm reading off of your page now.
Okay, so she talked about her 4-year-old daughter. She
Yes.
watched a Disney program the other day, and she said,
Yes.
"Mama."
Mama, I wish I was white because then I would look like this character. I call lies. I'm calling lies. I don't think she ever said this. No human would say this.
This
Little
sounds like
kids
something that you had an idea to say during an interview.
little kids
Push it.
don't think like that.
Yeah.
They don't. Little kids see like little white kids see Tiana in The
Mhm.
Princess and the Frog, and they don't see a difference between them and her. They
It's
see a princess, they see a pretty attractive woman in a dress doing fun things, and they like that. It's a
your 4-year-old daughter.
4-year-old.
The only way that this could be legit is if her mom, right?
Mhm.
So Sophie is constantly talking about the
Yeah.
differences in race in her home.
Mhm.
And then her daughter hears that and picks up on it because kids at 4 years old are not thinking about the differences in the way people's skin color is.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about that. You don't think about that until you get much older. And
And they
so,
might ask, a kid might ask, "Why do we look different?" And you just say, people look different.
yeah,
People
you
look
just say
different."
people's skin is made
Some people,
differently.
yeah, some people just look different.
It's
That's
not a
that's all my parents ever told me. They never said that, people are different
just said
or
people look
that,
different.
anybody's less than anybody. They just said, some people look different from you,
Mhm. And then they
and
pointed
that's
to your
cool.
brother and be like, "Look at how big his head is.
Yeah,
You
look
look
at his
different from
head.
him."
Look at how light and white and pale his skin is compared to yours, right?
Yeah.
Um,
You look
but
different from
it was
people.
never an issue. There was never any movies or TV that we watched where we were like, um, where a character was any less than
Right,
anyone else.
right, right.
What's an example of a movie you would have watched as a kid that would have had examples of representation?
Okay, so one that was in Star Wars, like with Lando Calrissian, I
Mhm.
watched those at a really young age. Did not even think about the fact that there was intentional diversity there. It was just another character that was interesting in Star Wars
Mhm.
until I got older and realized, oh, it was like a really big thing to push this diversity in Star Wars. And I was like,
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about that at all. I just saw Lando Calrissian as being Han Solo's friend, right?
When I would say, yeah, when I
And I
was
was
a
really
kid,
young when I didn't even think about
I
it,
would say
right?
a more prominent role would probably have been Mace Windu is in all 3 of the original, um,
Prequels.
prequels,
Yeah.
and at no point was I like, "Man," I was like, "Why," I like Mace Windu, but I obviously can't be Mace Windu because I'm white. It's
You
like, "No,
never thought
Mace
that.
Windu is cool."
Yeah.
It's the same with, like, the alien characters. I
Mhm.
was like, "Dude, Kit Fisto is such a cool looking alien character.
Right.
Yoda is awesome. Darth Maul is so freaking cool looking."
Mhm.
All of this it's made up. It's
When you're
nonsense.
young, you're not thinking about this. And if her daughter actually said this, it's because Sophie's constantly talking about
Yeah.
race and different stuff to where her kid has ingrained that at a young
Mhm.
age. That's the only way she would have said this. It's her mom's fault if she said this for sure.
Yeah, but she said, "I was able to say, but you can be this character, um, uh, you can be this character. Let me show you 10 other examples." It's like, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to say, "No, you can't be Elsa or Anna, or you can't be, Rapunzel." You're not supposed to do that to the kid, you
Mhm.
know? You can be Tiana. You can pretend to be Tiana,
Right.
right? You can pretend to be, somebody else. Um, what's her name? Eartha Kitt played Catwoman. You can pretend to be her.
Right.
Again, like, way back in the day, Eartha Kitt
Mhm.
played Catwoman. Um, that's like bad parenting or something.
Well, it's definitely irresponsible, and again, it's the heart behind this.
Mhm.
It's always like use the sappy story, whether it's real or fake. Use the sappy story to try to make your point, and change the context of it to push your agenda. Which the agenda is not bad to have inclusion, but when it's an agenda to ultimately subvert expectations and subvert lore and subvert everything that's beloved about a story, like that's wrong. It just
Mhm.
is. You shouldn't sacrifice the story for what your agenda is, and that's what they're doing as a whole with the Rings of Power, and it's what they're
Yeah.
doing also with saying there's nothing wrong with female characters, or there's nothing wrong with strong female characters, female characters. Don't make Galadriel that type of character. If you're going to do a second age story, she was a warrior and she participated in battle in the first age. Don't do a second age story where Galadriel is young and unmarried
Mhm.
and fighting with swords because
And
she
not
wasn't,
she
right?
hasn't done a lick of magic.
Right.
Not a lick of magic.
Right.
Um, yeah, man, I'm so caught up on this idea that there were no, like there's no, like, fantasy, uh, diverse characters. It's bizarre. Even in the '80s, freaking the Predator 2 had Danny Glover is the
Mhm.
main character. He's not a side character.
He's the
He's
main.
the main character,
Yeah.
and he's awesome in that movie. He's arguably, just as cool, if not cooler than Arnold, um, because he, like, gets to use some of the alien tech. It's
Mhm.
sick, dude.
Right.
Let's see. When the Rings of Power's cast was announced, a racist backlash followed, which led to the cast being deluged with with threats, harassment, and abuse. Lies. I want to see receipts. It was really hard, said Namvet, recalling the period. It was really, really hard. In fact, it was a little bit of a shock because I skipped into this role with excitement and naively didn't expect it. Lies also because you're the one spouting all of this racial stuff,
Well, DEI stuff.
DEI stuff. Not the fans. If almost universally, anytime a person of color is cast for a role, um, if they play the role really well and don't say all of this nonsense, people tend to be like, "Awesome, that was great." I
Mhm.
remember there was a lot of complaining about the actor who played Corlys Valerian.
Mhm.
They were like, "Why are we having what is this casting for the Valerians?"
Mhm.
Right? Um, he goes up there, does a phenomenal job, continues to do a phenomenal job. Nobody's complaining.
Was there any statements made about them choosing to make the Valerians a family, or a a black
There
family,
may
I
have been a
guess?
little bit of talk about it, but the context in the show is really solid because it's very obvious that the kids are not Leonor's.
Yeah.
Right? And that makes everything a little bit more dramatic.
Right.
And so yeah, it was I think a good choice, even if
Look,
partially it was for DEI reasons. He goes in, he acts the crap out of his role. I would say the other two, um, the sons, the whole boys,
mhm.
also great in the scenes that they're in, doing really good
Yeah.
jobs.
Yeah, I honestly didn't hear anything about statements that were made about inclusion in the Game of Thrones. I didn't hear them just touting this
Mhm.
constantly. And I watched the show and I have zero negative critiques about the
Yeah.
fact that
I mean,
they recasted
I
for
will
a black
say
man, right?
I think, I think, Westeros looks a little bit too diverse for the kind of place that it is. It's a fictional England.
Mhm.
Now in ports, it's okay to have more diversity.
Well,
It makes sense.
Valerian's also it makes sense.
Yeah, ports have lots of different people coming in and out. That makes more sense. But as a country as a whole,
But
um,
remember, if you go to Essos, there's a lot of diversity over there in Game of
mhm.
Thrones, not even just House of the Dragon. In
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, there's a ton of diversity in Essos, and it makes sense because it's more desert lands, you know?
Mhm.
So it's like it's more geographically correct.
So after that, it says the vitriol became so extreme that Elijah Wood, Sean Austin, Billy Boyd, Dominic
Monaghan.
Monaghan, um, who played the Hobbits in Peter Jackson's trilogy, banded together for a campaign called "You Are Welcome Here." So the whites had to be like, no, look, no.
The whites had to be the saviors again.
The whites had to come in and be like, we know because you guys really liked us and our movies, we are saying they're allowed.
Right.
It's like, dang, all right. If you guys say so. Man. There's
And I
also a
liked how you said
statement.
it says they played hobbits and
Who
you put it
played hobbits?
they played
They
the
played
hobbits of
the
Lord of the Rings.
hobbits. They played like the center stage characters of this story.
Mhm.
Uh, so there was also a statement from Rings of Power cast themselves, which stated, "Our world has never been all white. Fantasy has never been all white. Middle Earth is not all white. BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color belong in Middle Earth, and they are here to stay. The attacks came in droves, but I am honored to be in the battlefield. I wear those scars with pride." No, our world is not all white.
Mm-mm.
Thankfully, that would be boring.
Yes.
However, historically, and not even that long ago, we're talking less than a couple hundred years, our world was much more.
It was diverse because based on
It
geography,
was more
because we didn't
geographically
have
diverse.
great transportation across the
Yeah.
earth.
So white people lived in some parts, and
And
black people
dark,
lived in some
wet,
parts.
cold places.
Yeah, and Asian people and indigenous peoples, everybody lived kind of separate from each other. And to say that that's not history is frankly it's just lying.
Yeah.
That's a fantasy to say that everybody has always lived everywhere. But you can't say that and then turn around and say that, oh, these people have such a great rich historical culture. um it doesn't make any sense. So historically, in a world like this, you would have people that look different in different areas according to geography.
And when she says, "I wear those scars with pride," I'm just curious, are we talking about the racist backlash
Yeah,
scars?
the with
Um,
no evidence.
yeah, I would like to see receipts because there might be there's going to be people online that are literally hear us talk and be like, oh, here's your evidence. You guys are being racist because you're
Yeah,
critiquing this on in any way, you know.
but that's not racism. Racism is believing that other people are less than yourself, that are less than your race. That's not what we're doing here. We are critiquing the decisions that a company, a multi-billion-dollar company, is making, um, that are bad decisions for an intellectual property that we enjoy.
And also we want it to be for the time and for the technology of this story, we want it to be accurate so that there's a level of believability there,
Mhm.
right? And so when we're saying, I'm very honest, I do not care about diversity. I am happy to see it in the appropriate places. I don't want to see it in the inappropriate places because then you're making it seem like this is a DEI project. I want to see people of dark skin from places in Middle Earth that it would be more appropriate, and from people like hobbits,
Mm.
like the Harfoots that the book describes. And then I want to see people that are more white skinned or whatever in places that are appropriate. And that's all I'm saying. You lose a level of believability when it comes to, because it's all based around ancient Europe, the limited technology, it's all based around that, right?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about a world that looks diversely like 2024, but put back in that time where there wasn't the ability without traveling for, 6 months out of the year to get from one side of the map to the other, there wasn't this cross pollination of people.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a level of believability when you try to make your shows that are supposed to be ancient look like 2024 in our world.
Yeah.
That's just
And
not correct.
well, and then the other issue is that, um, they think that fantasy has to be, inclusive because it's fantasy, right? If you can believe that there are elves and dwarves um, and orcs and all of this stuff, then you have to believe that they would look different. All of them would be of different races and everything, but that's not the case. Um, that wasn't the case in the books. That wasn't the case in the movies. And it, frankly, in other fantasy genres, that can be the case.
Mm-hmm.
That can be the case like all day long.
Mm-hmm.
You can in any other fantasy anything, you can have them be as diverse as you want. Because if you're writing that, or whatever, but in established properties, to say that because it's fantasy it has to look like this, that's disingenuous, and frankly I think it's childish.
And it also takes away from the motivation of telling the story,
Mhm.
because it's saying we don't care so much about the story. We just want to make sure that our messages get across. And it
Mhm.
breaks down not only the lore, the believability of the story, it breaks down your integrity to tell the story
Yep.
correctly, all the way down to what characters are doing what time is this? Are the events of Middle Earth being played out correctly?
Mhm.
It corrodes the foundation of respecting the IP all the way through. It's not the fact that there's black characters in Middle Earth. That is not the problem. It is the disrespect across the board when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to characters, when it comes to different people and groups across Middle Earth. It's just disrespectful, and it's shown. You can see straight through it, because when
Oh
your
yeah.
foundation's not solid, it crumbles. It always crumbles, and the show crumbles when it comes to respecting the fan base, respecting Tolkien, respecting the established love of this intellectual property. It's harmful, it's ridiculous, and it shouldn't be allowed, right?
Yeah. So getting some of this, a little bit more of this red. So go back up. Go back up a little bit. No, go back down a little bit. Oh, I'm starting at McKay and Payne.
Okay.
McKay and Payne are reluctant to be drawn into negativity. The internet does breed some toxic behavior, says
We've been
Payne.
we would be under
We
toxic.
would categorize under toxic because we have critical opinions. We're not gonna sit down and just watch whatever they want and just be like, oh.
You said the word Middle Earth.
It's called critical thinking and media literacy. uh, we're not going to justify it with a response. So they're going to ignore criticism, is what they're saying. Ignore criticism from people who know this story better than you do. This kind of definitive shutdown is not uncommon for showrunners. They are friendly and polite, but they are not pushovers. They can't answer the questions. Mm-hmm. They don't have the knowledge. They are afraid that what they say is going to be used as evidence that they have no idea what they're talking about because
they also probably don't even really understand what happens in Middle Earth because they just said, just write something.
If we're being frank here, they don't understand what happens in Hollywood. They don't understand what happens in a writer's room. They can't write. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to do it. Mm-hmm. It's look at their past projects and you'll understand exactly who these people are. At one point, I asked about the involvement of Amazon CEO and Tolkien obsessive Jeff Bezos. I love that title, Tolkien obsessive Jeff Bezos. Sure, whatever.
Well, he did spend a crap ton of money to get the rights for this.
That's it. It should be money obsessive. Jeff Bezos. According to Brad Stone's 2021 book, Amazon Unbound, the billionaire has a penchant for micromanaging Amazon's TV projects. He is even said to have 12 rules that every successful TV show should follow, including a heroic protagonist who experiences growth and change. Yes.
Jeff Bezos wrote in his little notebook his personal opinion of what makes a story good.
Yeah.
No freaking background. He created a website that got super popular because he cared about the customer experience. And he thinks because he has money and he knew how to build a successful website in e-commerce, he now has the opinions that are definitive to be able to tell what a good story is.
He's done no research.
I wonder if his 12 rules...
like a heroic protagonist who experiences growth and change. He Googled it. He Googled what makes a good story. The first thing that came up was a heroic protagonist.
Dude, honestly,
experiences growth and change.
That sounds like me before I started educating myself on like storytelling and production and filmmaking. It sounds like 12-year-old me, like trying to be smart and writing down my notes, watching movies, being like, this is what makes a good movie, and writing it down. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like 12-year-old me.
You went, what makes a good movie? Pirates of the Caribbean.
A heroic
protagonist who experiences growth. But Pirates of the Caribbean is different. It's actually kind of different from that because, yes, Jack does experience growth and change, but he is so reluctant. Mm-hmm. He is not a heroic protagonist. He is a selfish protagonist.
Yeah.
There
are rules to storytelling, and the interesting thing about telling a story is be able to add a bunch of interesting quirks about characters and intrigue about their psyche and putting it in a soup and making it work with the rules. It has nothing to do with freaking Jeff Bezos's notebook of 12 rules that for every successful TV show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a formatted process. This isn't freaking digital code on how to sell the best toilets the fastest.
Gosh, I can't imagine trying to write a TV show and then this guy comes in and only because he owns the company, he's like, all right, guys, here's my 12 tips to writing a successful TV show. Okay. I'm gonna lay it out for you. All right. It's like you're an experienced writer who has like some really solid like movie and TV credits under your belt, and you're just listening to this
billionaire
freaking idiot, not idiot, but like idiot as far as your profession goes.
Self-important.
It's like, I firmly believe that, for example, Jeff Bezos probably has no idea how to, I don't know, whittle a spoon, make a knife, crochet a hat. If he was sitting down with me as I was doing those things, I'm not, the best in the world at any of those.
Mm-hmm.
But I know
You'd
for sure
probably
he
know
would
more than
sit down.
Jeff.
I know for sure he'd sit down and be like, dude, you're doing it wrong.
Well, you get so self-important when you're successful in one specific thing. You start to believe that you're just a child. You're just a prodigy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you write down your 12 rules and just think they're correct because you have a gift from the Lord. You know what I mean?
Here's
Of being
what's worse.
successful.
Imagine being Patrick McKay and JD Payne, who are not good writers, and having this guy come in and be like, right.
They probably took his ideas.
Dude, they're probably sitting there going, what do we do? All we're getting is like these bad ideas from Jeff and then nothing. We don't have anything.
Well, look, that
at least Jeff has ideas.
At least he brought you
at least Jeff has 12 rules. Jeff is probably a better movie TV show writer than these two guys.
Hey, you know what we can expect from characters like Galadriel, right? Is growth and change in season 2.
Yeah.
Just growth and change. We saw it in season 1. We're going to see it again in season 2.
Season 1.
Oh, we did, sort of.
So if they say we will not comment on any input, notes, or feedback from Jeff Bezos. Excuse me. Says McKay as though reading a pre-prepared statement. We can only say we're very lucky that he's a fan of it. This inadvertently conjures up the image of Bezos tapping away in the writer's room. Okay, I say, trying to clarify what is being said. So does that mean he's not involved creatively? You've got to ask him.
They are whipped into submission. Yep. They're so afraid.
Yeah.
And this is why. This is why. Because this is the highest. This is the most money ever spent in history on a TV show, right? The highest budget per TV show ever in history. And they have it. The two inexperienced weirdos who don't know how to tell a story and just lie about their thing because they don't know what they're doing. They have it. They were given it. So yeah, best believe the person who flipped the bill, they're just going to they're going to keep their mouth shut. They're going to do everything they can to not cause a single problem.
I imagine that the boss, the difference between, like, for example, if you had Jeff Bezos and you were like, hey, let me do my thing. This is my job. I know what I'm doing. You need to take a step back. I feel like Jeff's the kind of guy to be like, all right, well, you can get out of here.
Leave
right. Whereas if I believe that somebody like Elon Musk, if you told him, hey, this is what I'm good at, let me do my job.
He would probably do a calculation and be like,
he would be like,
okay.
all right. He'd probably be like, all right, yeah, you know what? That's why I hired you. And I'm going to take a step back.
Right.
I'm not saying that's how Elon Musk is. I'm just saying, like, differences in what I've seen from their personalities via the internet. Geez, where are we? It is Rings of Power, one theme, big budgets, big expectations. Oh, this is good. Yet last year, so the show's Amazon Prime's most watched original series. Yet last year, The Hollywood Reporter claimed that only 37% of American viewers who had started the season reached its finale. In response, Amazon Prime Video's video head Jennifer Salk said, "This desire to paint the show as anything less than a success is not reflective of any conversation I'm having internally."
Meaning internally what? Internally with her or internally with the people who are making the show?
With internally at Amazon. They're like, this does not reflect what everybody's saying to us inside the company. Everybody here at the company is saying it's successful.
Yeah, because
that's not how that works. That's not how that works. if the show is successful, you guys have all the numbers. Show all of the numbers legitimately,
Yeah.
and we, the audience, will be the judge. That's how it works. We decide if the show is successful,
Right.
right? Um, it's not reflective of any conversation I'm having internally.
For internally, for the people who wrote the show, who are collecting paychecks from the show, who are making this abomination, of course you're going to feel like it's a good show. Like, it just doesn't make sense logically at all. It's always, Jeff should know this. Jeff, friggin', how do you make Amazon and e-commerce successful? You put the customer first and constant. I heard him say this in a podcast. The reason Amazon is successful is because they perfected the customer experience and customer satisfaction with the shopping process, the checkout process, and the delivery process.
Yep. Dude,
That's the reason. So why is it so hard for Amazon Video to understand that the fans are the customer and you are upsetting the customer experience? Write that in your 12 rules for life freaking
for writing a good movie or TV show.
Write that in your notebook.
Yeah, dude,
Jeff.
it's so easy to get an audiobook on Audible. It's so easy to throw a product. It's so easy to throw a product into your shopping cart on Amazon. Dude, it's so easy to go down and read about that product and look at customer reviews and get feedback. It's so easy to do returns and replacements. It's streamlined. You get your packages so fast.
Next day if you have Prime. Same day sometimes.
And yet they don't know what to do with this. It says that season 1 naturally required a lot of setting up. Season 2 will be when the rings of power soars. I love this. On set today, there is an understandable reluctance to talk about numbers. Data is Amazon's side. I'm going to assume that's data is on Amazon's side. Yes, it is, because it's all internal and you're not releasing the real data. Says producer Lindsay Weber. Creative is on our side.
Creative is our side. So data is Amazon's side.
Data is Amazon's side.
Creative is our side. We don't look at the numbers and stats.
We're creatives.
Yeah.
Dude,
we don't need all this data.
We're the minds, all right?
Don't harsh my vibe with your numbers.
Don't get all your numbers, your math, your data, your your graphs that are going down in viewer retention and positive, reviews and everything. Don't get that into my creativity. All right.
I'm trying to
process. Look, I already have to go off the 12 steps, which is already messing with me, dude.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the subtext for what it means with culture when Galadriel's talking down to Elrond. I'm trying to craft the subtext there.
Subtext. There's got to be subtext and exposition. All right, don't you understand?
Right.
There's more has to be said in what they don't say.
Exactly. It's all about what's not said.
Let me write this down. Oh wait, hold on. Jeff already wrote it down.
Rule number 7.
Rule number 7.
More is said in what they don't say.
More is said in what you don't say. Before adding that, we never felt the pressure of data at any point. Clearly, they've never listened to the data. The data is like
and they never will, as long as the cash keeps coming.
The data is the hundreds of thousands of comments saying that evil cannot create, it only destroys, right? They're like, dude, we don't listen to that. But McKay does concur with Salk's assessment of season 1's inherent challenges. The first season was always going to be about the heroes and bringing the audience back to Middle Earth.
Not my Middle Earth.
Yeah, he says season 2 is about the villains. The chessboard has been set. The game is now afoot.
Ooh. Friggin', I'm so excited.
Let's see.
Sounds like a crappy game of chess.
Yeah, there's some other stuff further down. You don't have to go look
Yeah.
for it. I will look for it.
Okay.
Um, but they talk more about the relationship. They talk about Elrond and Celebrimbor. Um, let's
Don't mess with it,
see.
man. I think there's a lot of stuff in this article that kind of covers perspectives of characters on the show. And it's like, it's so exciting because this character is about to do this. And all that it meant for this character in season one is getting paid off in season two. There's just a lot of that fluff, that
Mhm.
nonsense, non-interesting stuff that people don't care about if they don't care about the show, which is a lot of people. Anybody who's read the books, anybody who is a fan of Tolkien's writing, anyone who is a fan of complex lore and world building cannot be a fan of the show unless your DEI values are more important to you than that, right? If you say I'm willing to sacrifice my love for world building and lore for DEI, then maybe you love this show because you already are compromised in your values of storytelling.
Um, so I want to read a little bit further down about Tom Bombadil.
Okay.
They're introducing Tom Bombadil. They say the stranger's journey into the deserts of Rhûn in pursuit of his only memory, an elusive star constellation, gives the writers an opportunity to play with another popular character or another popular figure from Tolkien's legendarium, the omnipotent enigma. Dude, this writer, oh my gosh, that is
Omnipotent?
he's not omnipotent.
No, he's not. He's not all
Um,
knowing.
the omnipotent enigma that is Tom Bombadil, played by Rory Keener or Kinnear. The
Kiner.
character
Inner,
Kiner. I
maybe.
don't know if that's right. The character first appeared in a whimsical 1934 Tolkien poem, but he is best known for his enchanting cameo in The Fellowship of the Rings. This is the chapter in which Bombadil saves Frodo. Yeah, we know all this.
Mhm.
He is jovial, speaks in rhyme. Tom Bombadil, Jolly Tom Bombadillo. He is perhaps the oldest, most powerful being in Middle Earth. So they introduce him, right? And they're talking about him like this in every trailer that I've seen. Um,
He's not happy, not
he's not.
jolly.
He's always like
He's brooding, man.
he's
He's
always turning.
brooding.
He's always like turn like a turn. Like there's like.
Also, I take issue with the insinuation that he is perhaps the most powerful being in Middle Earth. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I honestly think a child of Iluvatar like Galadriel in her true form, according to the books, is probably more powerful than Tom Bombadil.
I
Tom Bombadil
disagree.
might be on par with a Saruman and Gandalf kind of
I
wizard
disagree.
character,
I
but I
disagree.
don't think you disagree.
I disagree. I hardcore disagree.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me why.
Um, because a lot of people think that Bombadil is an avatar of Iluvatar.
Ah,
I disagree. I think he is the physical embodiment of the soul of Middle Earth.
okay.
I think he is the physical um essence of Middle Earth, the planet. Or Middle Earth, the country.
I believe
I think
Middle Earth is envisioned as a disc world or like a
the
flat
entirety.
Earth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's
it's
flat.
not.
The world,
Yeah,
right? Not maybe not the planet, but the world that
yeah.
they are on. It is I think Bombadil is the soul of that world. Um
Okay,
because it's,
getting into some high
he's
theories here.
that's my theory. That's why I believe that he could handle the ring for a time.
Hmm.
Um but also why he has no interest in it, because Middle Earth itself
Has
doesn't
no
fight.
interest in.
It has no interests. It's a world, but he enjoys it. He enjoys the people that live there. He enjoys that's why he's in the Shire, near the
Mhm.
Shire. He enjoys it the way that Tolkien enjoys his creatures and his stories and his, the way his songs and his poems and being happy, right?
Mhm.
Um, that's my head canon. There's nothing that confirms that, but
I honestly think what I would say is probably he's more of not a self-insert of Tolkien. I think he's more of a side of Tolkien that he
mhm.
wanted to put in there. Maybe Tolkien has kind of like a silly, jokey side to him, and he
Well,
didn't. He was writing a very serious story, and so he wanted to include that in some capacity. And he's almost like a self-insert to describe the things that he does love about the
mhm.
country, and he does love sort of what you're saying, but I think he might be sort of like a personality insert of Tolkien himself. That's what I
Yeah,
think maybe,
and
right?
I regardless,
Not a Luvatar, and I don't think he's as powerful as everyone assumes he is.
I think he is. I mean,
I
he
don't think there's no indication that
I
he
think
is
he is.
other than he could handle the ring for a
He
bit
he
and he
picks up the
learned
ring,
some stuff.
he looks at it, sniffs it, licks it, puts it on,
Yeah.
right? He it doesn't matter to him. Whatever magic is in the ring has no sway. It's like it's if the planet, in my mind, it's like it's if the forest, if the planet, if the world.
Inconsequential to him.
It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter, right?
Mhm.
He does have, like, some concern as to the fate of the ring, right?
Yes.
He saves the hobbits. He prepares them on their journey, because I'm sure he understands that it's the portent, right? Um, but like they write, it's like there's a reason why he hasn't been done before, because in some ways his character defies drama. He's an anti-dramatic character.
Hmm.
He's not interested in the adventure.
He's a cooler of the
He's just yeah, he's just there to hang out. McKay says he's there to hang out. It was a it was a challenge. They have no higher theories or concepts of what he could be.
Why are they putting him in the show?
It was a challenge to incorporate him, but we found that he fit right in as someone who could help the stranger realize his own potential. I cannot wait for fans to see the episode because I think that Rory Kinnear, or Kinnear, does what Rory does is magic.
I'm so freaking
Mm.
I'm so, and I can see it from a mile away, and I'm so annoyed with this because the stranger's Gandalf, all right? The fact that they are basically saying Gandalf, when he was sent by the Valar from Valinor to Middle Earth, along with, not all at the same time, but Saruman and Radagast and the two blue wizards, right?
Yeah.
When they're sent to Middle Earth, this idea that they show up, yes, as old men, right? They take the appearance of old men, but then what the show does is this idea of a they're coming in mentally as babes, and then through his maturing process, he has to basically learn his purpose. So in season 2, he's going to be conflicting with this idea of, am I supposed to face Sauron? He literally say it in the new trailer. He's like, is it my purpose to face Sauron? Right? They say it in the season 2 trailer, and at
Mhm.
the end of the season, it's going to come to the conclusion like, no, it's my job to turn the hearts toward good, right? That's going to be a little consistent with the lore, but I hate the freaking process they're taking it on because there's no indication in the books that when Gandalf and the other wizards arrive to Middle Earth, they've forgotten their purpose and now they have to learn it over again, you know?
I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna play off of the idea that Gandalf in the movies, at least, seems like Gandalf the Grey, that is.
Mhm.
Seems like a wizard who is looking at this task, with the ring, with Frodo, with everything, and being like, "I should have been more observant, right? I
Yeah.
should have caught this. I kind of have failed in my mission of protecting Middle Earth." That's what he seems like, you know? And in his sacrifice to save them, um, he that's why I think partially why he sacrificed, because he believed he failed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then when he's resurrected, he's kind of like, probably didn't deserve to come back, but my mission wasn't over.
Mm-hmm.
And Gandalf the White is a much more driven.
Well, it's a new. I don't know. Maybe you're right.
He's a harsh character.
Yes.
Even Ian McKellen says, like, I like playing Gandalf the Grey because he's more fun, more jovial. Gandalf the White is mean. He is. He's harsh. He's driven. He's a different kind of wizard.
Right.
And what they're gonna do in this show is, I don't think they're gonna fully understand what that means for the character. They're just going to be like, he has to be jovial. That's also, I think, what Tom Bombadil is going to instill. It's like this kind of like lighthearted, jovial happiness that the character needs.
Yeah. I think it's a wrong way to insert, especially when everything promotionally just has him as brooding, and
they want him to, he's going to be Yoda. He's Gandalf's Yoda, right?
Yeah.
But Yoda, who starts out as like kind of a little, troublemaker, who you don't really know what his goal is. This little guy, this little character. Even he turns out to not just be jovial, weirdo all the time. He's like, you got to be serious, dude. You can't just run off. What are you talking about?
Right.
You got to finish your training if you ever hope to, be any sort of success.
Right.
And that's what they want. They want a Yoda. They need a Yoda.
I think to put a cap kind of on this conversation, I feel we're getting the sense, even in an official interview, that from the top down, from Jeff Bezos all the way to the creators, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, they don't know what's going on here, nor have they put in the legwork to respect the lore, nor do they have any interest in respecting the lore, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not about race. It's about the respect of the story and the existing IP. And if they ever use the argument, we can't just tell the stories from the Silmarillion, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Then you shouldn't be doing a show, period. Like, spend a decade trying to get the rights to it, or do something so that you can tell the right story, not bullcrap your way through a fake Middle Earth story just to earn a penny and to say you did something. No, with an IP like this, with Star Wars, with Narnia, you have to go through the right channels, and the fans expect you to. The fans expect you to. You if you feel bound by what you can do legally according to storytelling, then don't tell the story till you're ready to have some more freedom, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say. And they're slated for freaking 5 seasons of this nonsense.
I think it gets past season 3.
You think they're actually going to cancel this thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's way too much like shills supporting it.
It's too expensive. It's too expensive. I believe, I do believe that this is it's a bit of a narcissistic project from Bezos, but even he, in all of his, blindness, he's a businessman. He's going to look at this and be like, this is hemorrhaging money and nobody likes it. Cancel it. I think they're going to double down on the stuff that people do like.
It's going to be a huge loss, man.
Yeah. They don't get to 5 seasons, and it not be a huge loss.
Mm-hmm.
They maybe get 3 seasons and it's a huge loss. They can't afford 5 seasons.
They can afford it because we're talking about Amazon. Their first baby is not the film and TV industry. They can dump as much money into this as they want.
Okay.
It's just if they're willing to take the loss, it's not going to sink
for their streaming service. They can't afford this reputation.
their streaming service is already not propped up enough by any serious. That's why
But
they tied Amazon Prime to the e-commerce side of it.
they want
That's why it's a pool of money.
they
you know?
want to be in this industry.
I
They want to
know.
be able to create stuff that people like. They have created stuff that people like, but they can't afford this image.
But there's a reason why they it doesn't matter. As long as everyone's happy with Amazon Prime e-commerce, it's the pool of money because you get Prime Video and Rings of Power if you pay for e-commerce Prime. So it's not a divided internal organization. It's literally pulling from the same bucket. So they have a never-ending
Well,
pile of
I'm saying
e-commerce money
regardless. I'm
to
saying
dip out
regardless of
of.
if it's money or not, right? It is going to hemorrhage money. It is too expensive. And I think Bezos is petty enough. I don't think he's petty enough to be like, well, I'm just going to make my show for 5 seasons, right?
He can though. That's
He
the
can.
problem. He has the money to do it.
I think he's petty enough to look at it and be like, well, people don't like this. Well, I'm not going to make it anymore. I think he's petty enough for that. I think people making this, they know it's on a time limit. They can't.
Well, how much they're tiptoeing around
They don't get
Jeff
to 4
Bezos.
seasons. They don't get to 4 seasons. Established filmmaking.
Here's the thing.
Hold on. Hold 1 second. Established movie making and filmmaking studios know how to take a loss, right? And even they're delusional these days on making content. I don't think that this makes it to a season 3. I don't think you can be that delusional that it gets to 5 seasons.
They haven't been around that long, so it's very possible that this is a crazy big blip in the history of Prime Video. I am of the prediction that Prime in the entertainment world is not going anywhere. I think they're going to be here for a long time. They might outlast everybody just because of the financial reasons. But you're right. If it gets canceled, it's going to 100% be that it's a human behavior, or like Jeff Bezos is upset about the reception or something. It's not going to be because they can't afford it, because they absolutely have money to burn, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like Disney. Disney right now does not have money to burn. Amazon has plenty of money to burn, and they're willing to burn it. But you're right, there is the reputation thing. But Jeff has to step in and be the one to say it, because they already made 1 season, and they're dropping the 2nd season. That's going to be complete garbage, and you only have 3 more seasons slated for this. Are we going to make 3 more seasons, right?
I mean, look at Wheel of Time. That got 2 seasons.
Did they cancel it, or did they just like stop it after 2 seasons?
They're not making another season. They're not making.
It's canceled with the original intention to do a 3rd.
I don't know. They haven't talked about it, at least officially. I haven't seen anything official. But no, they're not doing a 3rd season of that. No way.
I don't think they are either. I just don't know if it was like we always were gonna do 2 seasons, or if it was like a big cancellation like we just saw with The Acolyte.
I'm gonna stick with my guns. I don't think this gets past to season 3.
I don't think they're gonna end up spending $1 billion on this show.
I think maybe they already have.
No, not $1 billion. Each season's $200 million, or a little over $200 million, and then the marketing, whatever's on top of that. But the official budget with 5 seasons is set to reach $1 billion, which is why it's the most expensive show in existence, right?
I don't think they get there. I'm going to say they maybe out of sheer hubris and pettiness, make a season 3.
Or they cut it short at season 3 or season 4. Like they pull it back and say, well, let's just really quickly try to end this story in 1 season or maybe 2.
Yeah.
Who knows? That makes more sense, because they have to save face a little bit, right? They just do like a Game of Thrones and bounce.
Big question
Yeah.
that I have for you. Are we going to talk about War of the Rohirrim?
Yes, because I promised it at the top.
Okay.
We have to talk
All
about
right.
it some. All right. So War of the Rohirrim. Oh, first we got to do this. We always do this. Sorry. Thank you, Karina, for
The
being a Patreon member.
YouTube
An hour and 15
An
minutes of
hour
this
and 15
podcast.
minutes in. We won't forget you.
Hey, thank you, Karina, for supporting us over on Patreon. If you want to support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, you get the same perks, whichever platform you prefer. It's only $3.99 a month. It really helps us out. It's really beneficial. You get exclusive stuff, and we're always coming up with new ideas about more cool stuff to give you. So go support us. It's really cheap, and it means a lot to us. If you like our content, we'd love to have you over there. All right, now, War of the Rohirrim.
War of the Rohirrim.
So they just dropped this trailer. We've been talking about it on the podcast for over a year, and we got the first trailer. It's coming out this Christmas season.
Yes.
And overall, I like the vibe of this. I like the vibe of they got some Rohan music here in the beginning of the trailer. I'm not mad at the animation style. It's exactly what I thought it would be, pretty much. I think the biggest thing that we've discussed on our reaction video is kind of the Hera character, where they've brought in this girl with red hair as kind of like the self-insert of like Éowyn from Peter Jackson movies in the story of, you know, King Theoden and his niece Éowyn, and it injected it into the you know, Helm Hammerhand and that timeline when she's not really a part of that story at all. But they're injecting her in and making her kind of the lead character of this movie.
I think she is the lead character. I think she's the lead character. I think this is intersectional feminism. I think it's going to be all about her. And if they may cut some stuff, and you know, that was a little bit more woke in order to hopefully like appease the audience. I mean, at least she's hot. At least she's an attractive character. They you know,
leave it to the anime crowd to make sure that she's looking good.
You know, let females be attractive. It's, you know, they do exist in our world. No matter what Hollywood tells you, no matter what Twitter tells you.
But go ahead, sorry.
I'm just saying, I think it's all good. It's going to be about her. She's going to be the most important character and
the key to everything, probably.
Everything there. And for, she's going to be like an amazing fighter, and they're going to give her as much like montage, like training montage as we get for like Merida in Brave, which is enough for a movie. You know, we see a little montage of her going out, shooting targets and riding a horse, and we understand her skill level, right?
Yeah.
She's quick, she's fast, she's accurate. She can adapt on the fly. That's all you need for a movie. But for a TV show, they're gonna give us that exact montage.
Which I freaking love Brave, by the way. Yeah. I love that show. I don't like it when you're self-inserting female characters who are basically almost unmentioned in the books, because the story and the events that happen during this time period is so focused on the king and the heir to the throne and the antagonist, right? Not the rebellion, but basically the conflict of these peoples.
Yeah.
And to divert all of that to say, we're going to tell that story, but we're going to do it through the eyes of this girl who's pretty much unmentioned in the books.
Look,
right?
there's nothing wrong. I'd say there's nothing wrong with that. but you can't be telling the story with her as a warrior, because I mean, I hate to break it to, anybody who doesn't understand how history works and how medieval periods and stuff like this
Or how
worked.
the body mass index works.
Or how the body, yeah, or how, like, physical attributes work, differences between men and women.
Hormones.
Um, the women aren't out there fighting,
Mhm.
right? They're not, and they're doing this because of Eowyn in
Mhm.
the Lord of the Rings movies. But look again, Eowyn was not fighting um, characters like Lurch,
Mhm.
that Aragorn fought. She was not fighting. Um, uh, um, what's another big muscular? She was not fighting like tons of orcs and stuff, right?
She was sort of, and she was
She
on
was
the
fighting some.
battlefields,
She was
right?
fighting some, right? But she was on horseback a lot of that.
Yep.
Um,
And then she ended up breaking her arm and then stabbing what's his face in the face.
right. She battles him. Right. She doesn't fight him. She battles
She
him.
dodges, she
She
weaves,
dodges, she jumps, right? And then Mary gets him in the leg,
the sneak attack.
right, with the sneak attack, and it's a joint effort, and then she,
Has the opportunity to
gets
stab
yeah,
what's his face
exactly.
in the face.
Um but she's throughout the movies, everybody's telling her, "No, you need to be the one who survives. You
Right.
need to lead our people. We need you to carry on the legacy, because it's our duty to fight. It's our duty
Yes.
to die,
It's
right?
your duty
It's your duty to survive,
survive because
right?
someone has to survive
But there's
here.
this obsession in Hollywood with the women having to be the warriors, when it's so much better when you have good, strong female characters who can take care of themselves and they can be independent, but
Mhm.
they understand what their
Duty
duty
is.
is, right?
And their placement,
Mhm.
because there's no shame in not being the warrior and being the one who keeps the lineage of the House of Rohan
Yeah,
alive.
yeah, and that's like every good king, every good leader is propped up by a good woman, a wife or a mother or somebody that
You need
is
them. You need the
they're
ladies.
integral to
They're
how
super important.
to how the world works, and especially in that time period,
Yeah.
um, in how politics worked. They were super important, and you're diminishing that by saying they all have to be girl boss warriors.
It's not I'm not super surprised. I think I'm just disappointed, right?
Mhm.
Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and them did not make this movie, but they did executive produce it. So it means they did not write it, they didn't direct it, they didn't even produce it, but they
Mhm.
executive, which means they put their money or their time serving on the project in some capacity to
Yeah.
get this project made.
Yeah.
But they are not the everyday orchestrators of this
Well,
project, right?
I'll tell you what it is. Warner Brothers needed to keep a hold of the rights, so they
Mhm.
needed to make something. It's
Mhm.
the same reason that Sony made another Fantastic Four movie back in the day, with Michael B. Jordan and
Mhm.
you know all those others. Um, this is the same. They need to keep a hold of the rights, but they also need people to watch this, so they need name recognition. So throw Peter Jackson's name on there.
Also,
He is an executive producer.
yes, yes. They it's like they almost told Peter Jackson, "We need you to be an executive producer for the selling value. So come, you don't have to give us any money, just come to a meeting, share a few thoughts, and we'll call that
Yeah.
enough." You know what I mean? But it's almost interesting at the top where it shows shots from the Warner Brothers or the New Line Cinema / Warner Brothers original Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson trilogy, not the Hobbits, but the Lord of the Rings trilogy that
I would like,
everyone freaking loves.
yeah, and
Hold on,
of course Eowyn.
they show Eowyn, yeah, because it's a call, and she's actually voicing, so she's gonna be do some narrating.
Mhm.
Miranda Otto is doing narrating for this. But they show shots in the movie before they get into the
Mhm.
trailer and bring up Peter Jackson for the purpose, it seems like, of like, hey, remember good Middle
Remember?
Earth?
Remember?
Remember how you know how
Remember
Amazon's doing some
Edoras?
nonsense?
Remember the music?
Yeah. Well, freaking honestly, Warner Brothers has a lot of issues, but when it comes to just look, I'm gonna have an issue with saying we sidestep Helm Hammerhand to make this character lead. But if the events of Helm Hammerhand and what happens in Rohan during this period and Helm's Deep becoming Helm's Deep and the correct lineage, if they keep the correct lore, I'm gonna freaking enjoy it. You know?
I would say I can enjoy I can enjoy something that has a girl boss lead as long as she's not like the sole center of everything that happens always.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. She cannot be the key to everything,
Mhm.
but if we have to see the story through her eyes so you get your DEI check mark for whatever reason, okay, let's just make sure we're following the timeline of events so that Tolkien's a vision of history here
Mhm.
is displayed. And it seems as though they're on that path and they have to give us this nostalgia at the top to just be like, hey, remember we did something awesome with Middle Earth everyone loved, and there's other Middle Earth stories that people are making that aren't as good as ours. You know?
I can foresee that the only reason will be important is because Helm will put importance upon her, which will make her the most important character,
Because he
right?
has it baked in importance.
That's what you have to do with these kinds of stories. If you're subverting the character that's actually talked about by
Yeah.
putting in a new character that hasn't been talked about, he has to put importance onto her.
Hmm.
And it will be through her efforts that that his legacy is carried on.
Right.
That
Right.
that the It'll be through her efforts that probably the nephew survives and is on the throne. It'll be through her efforts that Helm's Deep survives. I'm
Well, it's
not
just going to be
optimistic
through
about
her
this.
efforts, whether her relationship with Wolf, who's going to be an antagonist
Mhm.
character, who's the son, I think, of Freka, I believe.
The big
Um,
dude
yeah, yeah, the big dude who gets punched and lights out forever.
punched to death.
By Helm's
One
Hammer
punch.
Hand. That's how he got
Yeah.
his nickname. But yeah,
Gosh,
so
that's so cool.
it's so cool.
Why I wanted that like for the whole trailer. That moment is so cool where he just like punches him and then we
Lights
get
out.
girl stuff.
Yeah.
I If I wanted to watch princess stuff, I would go watch Disney.
Check this out.
Yeah.
Watch this. Pah!
Boom.
Lights out
It's so
forever.
good, man. It's so good.
Now, this is an incredible story in the history of Rohan. It's a really good choice to tell an anime kind of spin-off thing of Middle Earth if you're going to tell some of the history of different groups of people or different parts of the map in different
Mhm.
times of Middle Earth. So this is a really good choice. It's just how far do they take it away from what's original? How much do we have to endure for us to actually enjoy the process? I love the snow that they have because it incorporates like the long winter that Helm Hammerhand kind of gets his he goes kind of nuts, man.
Um
If you guys do any looking up at videos or different people that do videos on the life of Helm Hammerhand, the long winter is kind of where a lot of crazy stuff happens, and it's super fascinating. There's some more long winter stuff.
the what is it that Saruman says to Theoden? He,
Which
he
scene?
it's Return of the King. It's the extended edition. Um, oh man, what is?
Well,
Hold on, I
Saruman's
gotta
only in it
find
for a
it.
little bit when he's up on the tower because he dies
Yeah.
pretty early in Return of the King.
Um. Yeah. So, what Helm Hammerhand is, and what this is referencing is who the kings of Rohan were,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you could give such weight to what Saruman says, and what Theoden believes about himself and who he is as a person and as a king. Saruman says, "What is the house of Rohan but a thatched barn where brigands drink in the reek of rats and roll on the floor with dogs? The victory at Helm's Deep does not belong to you, Theoden, Horsemaster. You are the lesser son of greater sires."
Ooh.
That is one of my favorite lines, and Theoden's face, you are the lesser son of greater sires. It's directly referencing people like
Mhm.
Hammerhand, right? These great kings. And Theoden's probably, don't hate me, probably uh the best king in
You might
Lord
change
of
your
the Rings.
mind. Oh wait, in Lord of the Rings,
In
period?
the Lord of the Rings, in the 3 movies, he is the best king,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He's the most because Aragorn's king just right at the very end.
Aragorn's, like, kingship doesn't start till later, and he doesn't start taking on that responsibility.
But we don't
Um,
see kingship. We see leadership, but we don't see
yeah,
kingship from Aragorn.
even as a leader, I think Theoden is one of the best. And he is, I would say, even, as probably a more tragic character than Boromir,
Mm,
as far as, you know, who he is. And that is, that desire to be a good king, and to be somebody who takes care of his kingdom and his
mhm.
family. He wakes up from this stupor and he already has failed.
Right.
My nephew is gone, my son is dead, my niece has suffered insults and indignities.
Mhm.
Right, he's already failed, and it's so good for his character. And this story had the opportunity, right?
Well, it
To
still does. It's just
I don't
weird. It's this weird subversion thing.
I don't
Um,
I think that um
it's lost its heart.
I think it's lost. They got lost in the sauce.
Well, at least we get to see some back action. You
Ooh,
see that?
a little bit of back.
Yeah, that looks like her shirt's been split open on the
Mm,
back, and we get some skin action. Um,
hot.
but the what that's crazy that you brought up that whole thing about that quote from Saruman because
Mhm.
I kind of I don't know what's going to be in the movie, and I don't know who all knows this, but Helmerhand,
Homer hand.
Hammerhand,
Mhm.
and his nephew and Rohan and the events that happen in the story is the reason Saruman ends up in Isengard.
Mhm.
He's the reason.
Yeah.
So when he's speaking to Theoden, excuse me, when he's speaking to Theoden, he's known, what is it, 200 years, it said at the top of this trailer?
Yeah.
200 years of a lineage of Rohan before
Mhm.
he says those words to Theoden, you know?
Yeah. And he's breaking him down. He knows the soft spots.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's he's probably he's had a spell on him for how many years at this point. He knows what his fears are. That's probably part of how he got to. Ooh, um, I want you to play the way that War of the Rohirrim comes in.
Okay,
Yeah,
here we
right
go.
here. Why? What?
Why what?
Why does everything? Why do these days? Why do all of the stuff has to come in like that? They got to rotate in. You know,
Just
Rings of Power.
interesting, dude.
Rings of
People,
Power did it too.
I know
It came in
everybody does
exactly
it.
the same. It had the words like spin in place and then land. It's like, I
It's just something that it's just a method that's popular and has been
hate
for
it,
about
dude.
a about a decade now,
What is
dude. It's been
this?
popular for a bit. You want me to play it?
Yeah. Please don't hit it.
What does Mordor want with rings?
What does Mordor
Mordor
want with rings?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that going to be any significance, or is that just a throwaway thing? Like that's a ring that he collected off a body?
It's a ring. Yeah, it's definitely a ring. It's probably, I think it'll play a little bit of significance in the story, but
Are they going to
it's just a nod. It's just
You think
nod.
there's going to be a like an orc that's out here collecting rings?
I think there's probably a series of orcs that are just going around collecting rings off
I
of
guess that would make
bodies and
sense.
things.
I guess that would make sense.
It would be a tactic.
For Saruman to just like, or Sauron to command his armies, be like, oh, by the way, any bodies, anything, treasures, anything, rings, bring them to me.
All rings come to me,
bro. How many?
That's
rings
a tactic. That's a
how many
thoughtful
rings
thing.
are in that tower at Barad-dûr?
Hundreds of millions.
Mm-hmm.
Just centuries of ring collecting to try to find the one.
Yeah.
It was at the bottom of a river for a long time.
Yeah, it was.
Bubble.
and then with some.
And it was in Gollum's cave.
Yeah, in Gollum and hobbits.
Yeah. So that's it, everybody. Thanks for going down the paths of Middle Earth with us.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for enduring with us. If you disagree with us, we're not people who censor here, unless you're just like, I don't know, unless you put like a bunch of crazy profanities in the comments.
Don't be too crazy.
But let us know what you think in the comments, right? And like this video if you enjoyed it, and come back for more if you want to see more podcast conversations like this. We do content all week. We're going to be talking about Rings of Power, this whole rollout. So stick with us. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.